Hello, Ms. Buchanan's Algebra 1A class. I'm looking at the x and y intercepts. I'm going to take you through these. And I'll put them in coordinate pairs also to kind of show you how they should look at the end. I don't think you guys need to do that, but we'll go one step further. So we have 4x minus 7y, and what we're doing, and that equals 0, what we're doing is we're seeing when x equals 0, what would y equal? So when x equals 0, that means, where is it going to be going through the y-intercept? Where is it going to cross the y-axis, in other words? And then we'll solve it for when y equals 0. And then what would x equal? That is going to tell us where it is going to go through the x-axis. So with this first one's kind of weird because it ends up being, when I set it x to 0, we just have, 4 times 0 is going to be 0. So I have negative 7y equals 0. And so I get y by itself, and I have to divide by negative 7 both sides. 0 divided by negative 7 is just 0. I do the same thing for the x when y equals 0. I have 4x equals 0. In order to get x by itself, I have to divide both sides by negative 4, and I get x equals 0. So what does that mean? Well, that means that the intercepts are both at 0. So this would be, 0, 0. And when x is 0, y is 0. And this one would be 0, 0. When y is 0, x is 0. Okay, what does it look like? What does all that mean? Well, if you look in red here, I went on Desmos. It's a graphing calculator that you can get to on your computer. And you'll see that I plugged in the problem here. And in red, it has it graphed out for us, the line of that equation. And notice it crosses at 0. It intersects x at 0, and it intersects y at 0. That's the intercept. And just so you know, I think you guys crossed off 2 and 4. When y just equals negative 6, what does that look like? Here's y equaling negative 6. And notice that it just becomes if you look at the bottom of my screen here, let me zoom out and move it up a little bit. Zoom back in. Okay. You'll see that it intercepts at 0, negative 6. So that's going to be the y-intercept. Okay. So the y-intercept would be negative 6 or 0, negative 6, like that. And for x, there is no intercept. It will never cross. It won't be intercepted on the x line. So it's not going to cross that x line because this is going to be a no slope. Okay. Whenever you see y equals, it's going to be no slope. Remember. Okay. This is y equals. This is no slope. Okay. And this would be 0, negative 2. For number 4. Let me go backwards to number 3. Taking a look at number 3. So when x is 0, we have negative, and I just covered up with my pen for a reason. Now you're just looking at negative y equals negative 1. So I have negative y equals negative 1. If I get rid of the negative on this side, I have to get rid of the negative on this side. So I have y equals 1. So that intercept would be when x is 0, y is 1. That's the y-intercept. And then when I figure out when y is 0, x just equals negative 1. I have nothing else to do. So x is negative 1 when y is 0. So that's the x-intercept. Okay, that's where it's going to cross the x-axis. At negative 1, it's going to cross the y-axis at 1. Okay? You could plot those points, and you could, make a line out of them. X. Let me put that on there real quick, so you could see it being done. Have x minus y equals, and what was it? It was negative 1. Negative 1. Okay. And so this one's going to be in green. So look at my intercepts. I have -1, 0. We had -1, 0. That's the x-intercept. That's where it crosses the x-axis. See what that means now? And then your y-intercept where it crosses the y-axis is 0, 1. Okay? For that equation, for number 3. And we figured out 0, 1. Okay? It makes a little bit more sense when you look at it on a graph. Okay, let's move forward, and I'll just go through these and make sure you pause as needed. When x is 0, I have -4 equals, or -y equals 4. And if I change the sign on this side, I have to change the sign on this side, so it's going to be y equals 4. So when x is 0, y equals -4. And then when y is 0, x just equals 4. So x is going to be 4 when y is 0. So those are your intercepts. There you have number 6. And I changed number 6. I changed it to a mixed numeral instead of leaving it as an improper fraction. And there's your y value. I'm going to talk about the odd ones, but I'll show you some of the even ones to get you going. This one's a lot like number 1. It's set to 0, so you're going to be at 0 and 0 for your y and your x. It's the same as the first part of number 1, -7y equals 0. It looks exactly like number 1. Okay, number 8, when x is 0, I have -y equals 13. If I change the sign, I have to change the sign on the other side, so y equals -13. And then when y is 0, I have x equals 13, so x equals 13 is going to be my x-intercept. So let me write this in a coordinate pair. So when x is 0, y is -13, and when x is 13, or that x is 13 when y is 0. Those are the intercepts. Okay, let's do some from scratch. So number 9, let me first go with x being 0. So I'm going to have 3y equals -10. And I'm just going to divide both sides by 3. So I'm going to have -10 over 3. Okay, so it would be at about if I take -10 divided by 3, it's going to be -3 1/3. Okay, so it would be when x is 0, y is -3 1/3. And then when I make y 0, x just equals -10. So x equals -10. That one's easy. So the coordinate there is when y is 0, x is -10. And if I were to put that on Desmos, you would see where those cross the y-axis and where it crosses the x-axis. This one is, once again, a no slope. But your y-intercept is going to be 0, -5. When x is 0, y is -5. Y is -5 all the way through. Number 13, when x is 0, for y equals 0, 0 divided by 4 is just 0, so x, when y is 0, x is going to equal 0 also, so you're going to have, y-intercept 0, 0, 0, 0. It's going to be like your number 1 that goes right through the origin, right through the center of the graph. And number 15 is the same. So, you can see it's set to 0, so y is going to equal 0, x is going to equal 0. So you're going to have 0, 0, and 0, 0. So let me do one that's a couple that are a little bit better. Like this one, if x is 0, I have -4y equals 8. See, x is 0. 3 times 0 would just be 0, so that's why I'm just left with this. That's why it ends up looking like this, in case you were wondering. 8 divided by -4 is -2. All right. Okay, now, So that means when x is 0, y is negative 2. And then I'm going to go with when x is, or y is 0, what would x be? So it would just be 3x equals 8. And then that would be x equals 8 over 3. Or you could say 2 and 2/3. Okay, so when y is 0, x is 2 and 2/3. All right, and if I could help you with number 14 also, let's see, when x is 0, I have negative y equals 3. Y is then going to equal negative 3, because if I change the sign, I don't want to know what negative y is, I want to know what y is. So that changes that sign. So when x is 0, y is negative 3. When y is 0, x is going to equal 3. So when y is 0, x is going to equal 3. Okay, so that's your number 14. And that's a lot of help, and hopefully it makes some sense.